So we have the wonderful George Gettas, who is a life coach from Canada, Toronto, and he's requested already. How lovely. So I'm just going to join with him.
Oh, Joanna,
Hello, George. How are you?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining me on this call, because I know that over the next few days you're going to be a very busy man with all the grandchildren, right?
Come back on Wednesday, so yes, and it goes from very peaceful to frantic in literally a heartbeat.
But they bring the joy
So,
to the house, so how can you not love
oh,
that?
absolutely, absolutely.
So, George, I was just saying to everyone before you came on that you live in Canada, in Toronto, is that correct?
Correct.
And you are a genius life coach. So you
What I call zone of genius. Yes,
zone of genius. So you help others, in particular women, find their genius, right?
correct.
Amazing. So I'm very happy to have you today. We've been doing live shows every single day and had a real mixture of different people doing the interviews, which has been really exciting. So I'm really, really looking forward to our conversation today. So if you just let everyone know a little bit about you and what it is that you do and what you focus on, etc.
Okay, what I'll do is I'm going to give you the 20-second backstory, and then I'll tell you what I do now. I graduated from one of the premier business schools in Canada literally 50 years ago. And then I became for 20 years, I was a tax accountant. I was a partner at Deloitte's in various things, helping a lot of major corporate clients. And then I became an investment advisor where I help people, invest their money. And I did that for about 15 years. And and I was, if you looked at me, if anybody looked at me from the outside, I was a success on the outside. But inside, I felt, not so much, right? Like I just wasn't there. I just wasn't fulfilled. And then in March of 2011, the you know what hit the fan, and I had resulting from a heart operation, and triggered a couple heart attacks and died a couple times, and got zapped about 15 times.
Yeah, you said
And
that.
as I'm
When I was
recovering,
reading that in the story, I was thinking, wow, two heart attacks, and you
yeah,
actually died, and they had to zap you.
yes, yeah, 15 times. And then as I'm recovering, and obviously I did recover, um, you become very Zen-like. And I apologize to anybody who is really truly into Zen, but this is my idea of what Zen is. And I got the feeling that, it would have been real simple not to be here. And and what and so I'm taking this as a message from the cosmos that I've got something important to do. And so, okay, Spark, I go figure out what it is. So it took me about 4 years I got out of the hospital, and then I took two different paths. One was cardiac rehab to to get my heart back to proper shape, and then trying to figure out what it was. And I literally tripped across coaching. And as soon as I tripped across it, I knew that was it. And so that is sort of the backstory of how I got there. And what I'm doing now is I'm coaching women to find their genius and figure out how because everybody has genius. Everybody was born to do something special. And then what happens is that, and when I go air quotes, well-meaning adults start telling you why that's not true, and what they're trying to do is to turn you into average. Well, in what you do really, really well, you're not average. You are special. And so what I'm trying to do is undo all that learning that people have done over the time to re get back to what they are really good at. And so that's effectively that in yeah, again, 3 minutes or less is what I do.
George, what you are saying is what we have touched upon in more or less most of the live interviews this week, right? And it was only yesterday that I was speaking to someone in Germany. Her name's Jasmine, so she helps with the phobia of a fear of flying. And we were discussing this kind of superpower that everyone has, right? And you just got to find
Correct.
out what your superpower is. And I was watching this
Correct.
motivational video by Steve Harvey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who he is, but he's like a comedian, but turned
Sure.
into a motivational coach. And he
Yep.
said, you know, everyone can be successful at something, but the key and the art is that you have to love it and you have to be extremely and utterly passionate about it. He said that, you know, growing
Right.
up, he had a friend that used to cut grass, and he wouldn't go out with them. He would be like, no, I can't, you know, go out drinking because in the morning I have to wake up and I have to cut so and so's grass. And he was like, what are you doing? You know, you're just cutting someone's grass. But anyway, it turns out that in today's world, this gentleman now has one of the most successful landscape gardening companies in America, in terms of
Right.
millions and millions of dollars. And that was
Right.
on cutting grass because he loved to cut grass. So
Right.
it's all about finding what it is that you love, and then that love makes you good at it, right? I mean, how do you go
Right.
about speaking to your clients and tapping into their superpower?
Okay. Um, there it's there's a multitude of ways in which I attack the problem, but what I'm going to tell you about first how I start, and how I start is I get people to take the Strength Finders test, and the reason why I get them to take the Strength Finders test is because it makes sense to me. Like I've tried Myers-Briggs and I've tried all sort, the different one, the one with the colors and, all that kind of stuff. And they don't make any sense to me. It just doesn't register in my head. But when I take the Strength Finders test, it makes sense. Now I'll go through and I'll tell you what
Yeah,
my top five are, and you'll get some kind of an idea. My number one strength is maximizer, which means I take your strengths and I make them better. My number two strength is relator, which is one-on-one relationships. I have powerful one-on-one relationships. My third strength is learner, which is self-explanatory. You're always looking for new ideas and that kind of thing. Four is developer, which means just what it says. I develop people. And five is empathy, which means I'm able to put myself into your shoes, right?
right.
Now, when you know that, now what you've done all of a sudden is you've taken the spectrum of all the possible things and narrowed it down to something of, well, I can look and sort of in that area, right? There still may be a million things you can do without those five strengths, but at least you're eliminating all the other stuff, right? Which is good. And let me give you an overall, because one of the biggest things that everybody has is the little voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough, right? Okay. Now, and I'm trying to do this by camera, which I usually do. When I do it in person, I use the desktop and that type of thing. And if you take the screen in which I'm in
Right.
as all the possible things that you can do in the world, right? All the possible things, executive, athlete, all that kind of stuff. And let's say there's a million different points in that area, okay? Now, there's about 999,995 things that you're not good enough at, right? And it goes across the spectrum of, I really suck at this, or I'm not physically able to do it, to, like me as a tax accountant, I was a partner, so I was a success, but I could do it really well, but it didn't light me up, right? So there's a whole spectrum of things. Now, when you're in that in those areas, by definition, you're not good enough. Okay?
Right.
And so when you focus on what you can't do, that little voice is triggering, going in your head, saying you're not good enough, because it's literally telling you the truth. You're not good enough at that. But there's 5 things in that out of the million that you're really good at, that you really rock, you love doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And when you focus on those things and not the things you can't do, then that little voice goes away, because it says, yeah, you're right, you got that, you can do that, right?
Right.
And so I was a card-carrying member of the I'm Not Good Enough Club for the longest time. But as soon as, and I started my coaching in about February of 2015, as soon as I found coaching, that little voice has gone away, and I haven't heard a peep since then. Because, as I said, your subconscious knows that you can do that. You're more than good enough at doing that, right?
Right.
And so that's the trick. The trick is to focus down and spend the time and spend the effort to find out what those, handful of things are. So that's what I'm effectively doing. Now, also, most of the people that talk to you are looking for what you can't do, are looking for what you're weak at, right? And they're trying to give you help in those areas of opportunity, quote unquote, of how you can improve. Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you average. They're not trying to make you exceptional. They're trying to make you average. And so what I do, because I'm looking for, and my brain is wired on trying to figure out what you're good at and what you're really, what you can do, that I'm looking for this is what I'm good at, right?
Right.
And so that's what I try to do. And how I do it
Right.
is, if we were having a conversation, I would just get you to talk. Because when you talk, you will say things that give me a clue as to what you're good at, right? I don't know that you're doing it, but I'm listening for the good stuff, and I'm filtering out all the things that you say you can't do. And so I pick up on that. And here's the deal. What you are really, 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 really good at, you don't think it's a big deal, because you've done it forever. It's comes so easy to you. And you say, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Well, that's baloney, because that's not true. And what the truth is that thing that you can do really well is your superpower. And what tends to happen is that the people who are really good and really have tapped into their superpower and the thing they were born with to do super specially well, they start to feel like frauds, because they think, oh, this is way too easy. Like, I should be working harder. Work is supposed to be hard. But the reality is, the thing that you do really well is so simple to you, because it's just what I've always done, right? And so you will always tell me, will give me clues as to what you can do well, right? And so that's what I'm listening for. And there is always footprints in the sand in your past of examples of how you do things well, right? And, I did this, I do that. And one of the tests that I give the women that I coach is to send out an email to people that they know. Probably not family members, because family members know how to push your buttons, right? But they send it out to people they know really well, and ask the following questions. Okay, and I'm going to use you in this example.
Okay.
You send out an email saying, I'm working with this guy, and he wants me to have you fill in the following sentences. Sentence number 1: Joanna is awesome because she blank. Okay? Number 1, Joanna is awesome because she blank. The second one is, Joanna is the go-to person for blank. Okay? And then the third one, and this one isn't a fill in the blanks, this is a give me an example of how Joanna showed up as her authentic self, how she showed up exceptionally. Okay? And what this is all trying to do is to get people to tell you how you show up to them, right? Because here's the reason, here's the deal. If you're talking to somebody who is exceptional doing something, like me, for instance, doing this talk, right?
Right.
You sit there, you know, that you say, this guy is really something. Like he's doing something that I couldn't do in 1,000 years, right? Like this, he's special, right? From my side, I'm saying, this is who I am. This is what I always do. What's the big deal,
Normal,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but the person on the other side sees the exceptionality of it because they say, I could never do that. Right? That is just spectacular. And this is another clue, along with the strength finders, along with your talking, you know, that you pick up on as to what it is that it is the special thing. So that's the, you know, in 20
Literally
words or less.
everything you have just said is so incredible, and how you have put it. I can just see comments of people saying, I love this guy. Wow. Ooh, making all strange, because it's true. It's phenomenal the way you've just broken it down and the way you have looked at it. And I guess that's your superpower. And it's great. Now, one thing I want to refer to is that when you sent over to me your life story, and also the brief summary about what it is that you do, you mentioned that you support women in particular, right?
Correct.
You gave a fact. Yep. You said, if I remember, 85% of women are known to handle money. Did you say what was the
the quote is that 85% of purchase decisions are either made by or influenced by women. And if that's a true statement of fact, then why would any business have a guy trying to sell to a woman? Because how my brain works is not how your brain works.
Right, because
it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any logical sense to me.
Right, because men and women's brain are very different.
Right, and the deal is, and again, let's say business has been around for 2,000 or 200 years. Go with me on that. And it's not a shock to you that it's mostly male default, or it has been for a long time. And when I came out of business school, it was definitely male default, right? Now, the problem is that they think in a certain way, right? And this isn't going to come as a shock to you, but boys grow up doing me, 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 me. I'm the king of the castle. I'm going to beat your head in. And girls grow up going, we can make this better. We can do this together, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that me, me, me mindset for guys has now evolved into all the crap that you see going on these days with the the U.S. political situation, all that kind of stuff, right? And what we really need, or what business really needs, is the yin and the yang, the male and the female, because guys sort of get taken for a ride in the business world, and I'll tell you why. Is that this me, 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 me mindset that I'm going to beat your head in works fine until you get up to the very highest levels. And then what happens is the board changes the rules on you and goes, your job now isn't to beat everybody's head in. Your job now is to make everybody better. And they say, whoops, I didn't sign up for that. That wasn't what I was doing. Like my deal is to go out and, just beat everybody up. And whereas all the women have gone along going, what's the big deal? We've been doing that forever, right? Like this type of thing. And so the reality is that, business needs more women is my thing. Now, let me go back to let me tell you the backstory of how I got to that decision to coach women.
Yeah, please do so.
In my coaching course, which I took in the spring of 2015, one of the first couple weekends, during the first couple weekends, we wrote down about, what is your goal? What are you doing? And some people wrote down things like, I am the lighthouse that guides people home, and I am the rock upon which your future is built, this kind of stuff, which seemed way too esoteric to me. And I wrote down rationally. So the reality of why I wrote down I coach women, I don't know where it came from. I just know it came. I've got 20 justifications for it, but I don't know if any of them are the real answer of what was happening in my subconscious that caused me to write that down. But I'm a big fan of women. I think that we need more and more and more of them.
Yeah.
And, etc. And we go from there, right? So that's how I got there.
So, George, tell me because you said that you did your coaching course in 2015, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So how shortly afterwards did you then start, gaining some clients, and how did you go about doing that? Because that within itself is, you've got to be quite savvy in business in order to be able to get clients, because there is a business element into whatever it is that we choose to do, right?
Right. What really happened was that in the coaching course that I did, which was always a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Saturday night was always a go out and coach somebody. So find somebody to coach. And so there was a young couple that I had met, like they were just graduated from school about 2 years ago, had gone to the same business school that I had gone to, and I had met them there. And so I asked each of them on successive Saturdays, can I coach you? And so we did. And then I asked the young lady, hey, do you know anybody else? And she says, well, you can do my roommate. And so it goes from there. And then all three of them, I continued on coaching. And then it just happens, people, word of mouth and whatever. My biggest problem is I believe that I'm really, 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 really good at doing what I'm doing. And I believe that literally everybody needs a coach. Now that's a self-serving statement, but I believe that people, do need the help and the guidance. And so, and the whole is, how do I get my message across to others, right? And things like this is good. I've got I did a video podcast with somebody from the UK. Her name is Naomi Light. That if you go onto YouTube and punch in George Gettas, it's the only thing that kicks up, and you'll see the video podcast that I did with her. So it's that kind of stuff, and and then a word of mouth and et cetera type thing. And the fun for me is meeting these people in person and dealing with them in person, and because then you get to see their improvement and how their mindset changes and how their view of the world and themselves change, et cetera, et cetera. And then on top of that, again, and this one, I don't have any kind of justification other than I've seen it several times, is that the more that you get to like and respect yourself, all of a sudden, the right person, the right partner will come along. I don't care if it's male or female, but the right person will come along for you. And what I've found so far is that with the people that this has happened to, is that the person that comes along is not who you would have drawn up as to have been what you would have expected them to be attracted to.
That's so interesting what you're saying, because I am someone who, I'm 36 and I'm not in a relationship, and literally when I think about being in a relationship, I think to myself, it just seems so far from me. The idea of, I just can't see myself being with someone, even though deep down I long for it. And
Right.
I'm rather successful in what I do. You know, I have multiple companies. I've got a successful interior design company. I also make bespoke furniture. I buy property. I do them up. I either flip them or I rent them out. So I'm always on the go. And on top of that, because I love business so much, I also love to teach people business and I love to motivate people. And throughout my journey, I've always felt that perhaps maybe I was going for the wrong partner. And it was always either very competitive or I was very controlling, or I don't know, something just wasn't giving. And for those people out there that are perhaps in my position, I'm gaining here free advice as well.
Sure, of course.
But for those women that are also in my position, what would you say? Because literally, I can't imagine myself being with anyone right now.
Right. The world changes when your mindset changes from I hope I am good enough for them to I hope they I hope that they um, are good enough for me. Okay? Because the latter one has, when you get to know who you are and believe who you are and and are comfortable with who you are, then you start putting out an energy that attracts that type of person, right? And
Right.
so, right? And then the answer is, now again, there's 7 billion people in the world, right? Like there's got to be somebody
Got to be
around.
just one.
Right, exactly right, right? Right. And you're talking to the guy who was the shyest guy in the world when I was a kid. And that was the only thing that kept me going. There's 7 billion people in the world. There's got to be one woman around here that can put up with me. And as it turns out, on May the 9th, we will have our 50th wedding anniversary. So,
Beautiful.
I lucked out and found the one person. Um, but, sorry, I know what I was going to say before. To go from, I hope I'm good enough for them to, I hope they are worthy of me, right? And when you think about that, then your filter's different, right?
Right.
And um, and the thing is that when you go with that filter and you go with, I am going to wait for the right one, because one of the biggest message I always gave to my daughter is never settle, right? If you tell me about some person and there's a but in there, that means no, right? I like him, but, right? Like, or I like her, but, right? That means not going to happen.
Right. No, I do want to find someone. But no, you're 100% right in what you're saying. I would rather be in the position that I am now than to be with someone, that I rushed into, that there was buts, that I ignored it. Now I've got kids, and I'm
Right,
living an unhappy life and not being able to tap into my superpowers, which is what we've been
right,
discussing, right? Because you need
right,
clarity in order to be able to embrace
right,
that passion and that love.
right. Totally agree, right? And so that's all part and parcel. That is an offshoot, even though I'm not a relationship coach. This is the stuff that tends to happen, is that, when you get to like you and love you, then you sit there and go, okay, well, I deserve something better than average, right? I'm waiting for the right one, right?
Agreed.
And if I don't find it, I'm okay with that.
Right.
But as you say, there's 7 billion people in the world, and
Exactly.
there is somebody, at least one, right, who can handle you and deal with you and be on your side.
God bless
Because now I'm going to go, right. Then I'm going to go jumping over to the thing, is because one of the things that I really do is I am your biggest cheerleader. like, from a coaching point of view. And what I also can do is I can see not where you are right now, but where you can, right? So for some reason, and I can't tell you how it happens, it just happens in my head, but I can see how you are super special and where you could go and what you could do with how super special you are. And that's what I do. And that's what I try to do is screaming from where you are right now to where I see you.
Just
Right.
going
And
back
so
to our superpower.
that is part of my superpower. Right. That's part
Right.
of my superpower.
Going back to superpowers, and for anyone that is watching or that will be watching this once this is posted, is that how incredible to know that we all have something that we are great at. Even just that alone gives so much inspiration and happiness. I mean, it buzzes me out to think, wow, there are things that I'm good at that I don't even realize. And it kind of makes sense because I've been utilizing it. And it's liberating because once you have the faith and the belief that you can achieve in what you are good at, it is so liberating, which is what must have happened to you when you landed into life coaching.
Right. Right. Exactly right. Right. And when it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this talk, which is when you start focusing on the 5 things and not on the 999,000 things that you can't do, then all of a sudden you become a different person, right? And as I said, all I can tell you is that that little voice in my head that says you're not good enough went away. Sorry, okay, and then we'll go from there. I was, again, sorry, let me try another way. As I say it in my note, I believe that almost everybody's family is dysfunctional in some form, right? And mine was no different than anybody else. Our level of dysfunction wasn't really high if you looked at it from the outside, but it was the only dysfunction I knew, so therefore it had my full attention. And my go-to method from getting away from dysfunction was to sit in my room and read. And so I've been reading personal development books for, say, 55 years, right? I've read probably thousands of them. And so a mixture of all those people, you throw Napoleon Hill and you do, Earl Nightingale, and you throw Dennis Wheatley, and you throw, all of the great
Jim Rohn,
authors from a personal development, all of them, right? All of them. And what it led to is it led me to this book that I've got in front of me, and it's called Dark Horse, just like it sounds, Dark Horse. And it's written by a guy by the name of Todd Rose.
Right.
Okay? Dark Horse by Todd Rose.
Got it.
Todd Rose, right? Just like it sounds. And that book literally puts in words everything that I think and I believe, right? And it goes through, what I believe in the steps and all that type of stuff. Sorry, one thing I haven't given you so far is I haven't given you the steps that I go through, that I believe that a person goes through in their journey that they need.
Okay.
Step number 1 is what we talked about before, which is figuring out what you're good at, like the strength finders and those types of things. What am I good at? The second step is figuring out what is I carry around with me that's getting in my way, right? It could be, I'm not good enough. It could be all sorts of things, right? The third one is, what are the things that light me up? And the fourth thing is, what can I do to get more of the feelings that light me up, right? Does that make sense? Right? What you're good at, what's getting in your way, what lights me up, and what can I do to get more to light me up? And then you rinse and repeat on 3 and 4. because you try something, you go, okay, that worked, I got this. Well, that sucked. I never want to do that again. And then you try something different. You go and try to figure out what else you can do, right? And so that's effectively the path. And that's the path that I take people on, trying to figure out, who they are, what they can do, what their genius is, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And I think,
but all, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say that the last point that you made about finding things that make you feel good within yourself are highly needed, because, even once you found your superpower or powers and you are in motion and you're really rocking it, right? There are moments, we're only human, where, we feel deflated.
Right.
We have problems with family, loved ones. Things beyond our control can happen, right? Even now, like with the coronavirus, where people can become very anxious, and that can lead to depression.
I'm the poster child for what can happen.
What's that?
I'm the poster child for what can happen.
Yes.
Right? Like, I died twice.
Right, exactly. So with those moments, it's so important to be able to take control and think to yourself, right, hold on a second here. Am I going to let this consume me? Right? Or am I going to be logical and understand that this is just a moment that is happening, and that I have to find within myself the strength to be able to continue? And let me just jazz things up a little bit. Like, let me put on some music, or let me read my favorite book, or let me take out some photographs of things, of time.
Right. Yes.
Did you move location?
Yes, I did. Anyway, as I said, fulfillment comes from outside of you, and it comes from helping others. Now the challenge is okay, how are you going to do it, right? And there's a great Venn diagram that, you know what a Venn diagram is? The circles that interconnect.
Oh, okay.
And the part in the middle is the thing. And the four circles in the Venn diagram is what you love doing, what you're really good at, what the world needs, and what the world will pay you for. Right? What you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what the world will pay you for. The intersection of all that is using your genius and making, being able to make a living at it, or get paid for it.
I mean, it really does go without saying that giving is such an important key to this all.
Correct. Right. And one of the things that is happening in the modern world, especially in the North American world, is the concept that, how much money you have equates to how successful you are. And that just isn't true.
No, it's not.
Right? Because those people, as you've heard many, many, many times, you've got some of the most unhappy people in the world are billionaires that are worried that it's going to end tomorrow.
So true.
Right? And so, so part of the exercise is, and why this is so important, is because you're trying to do things that you really are good at, you love doing, and when you love doing it and you're really good at it, then you will do it at a much higher level than other people will be able to do, right? And this is, you've heard of the concept of flow, right? Right. Well, when I coach, I'm in flow, right? And what tends to happen, like and I don't speak for you, but when I'm coaching somebody, my prefrontal cortex, the part that I think with, is not engaged, right? The conversation that you are having is strictly with my subconscious mind. And how do I do it? I haven't got a clue, but I know I do it. And I know that, and I've trained myself to know that as soon as you stop talking, a question will come up. It'll come up from somewhere, but it'll come up. And so therefore I am constantly in the now. I'm constantly listening to you. And again, this is a superpower all by itself because, for instance, if we have a 2 or 3 hour chat, I will be in the now, totally listening to what you say and what you don't say, and all the energy you push off for all but maybe 5 minutes. And and then when I compare that to what I do when I meditate, when I meditate, my brain is like a puppy on speed that sees a squirrel. It's all over the place, right? It's here and there and this and that, all that type of thing. But when I'm talking to you, I am totally here now, which is, as I said, I don't know how I do it. I know I do it. I can't explain it, but it's just what I do.
It's funny you should say that because I was doing my life coaching diploma, shall we say, because it's actually not certified here in the UK. I'm
Sure.
not sure if it's certified in America. So you have to
Correct.
be able to shut off your own thoughts and just be completely with the person that is speaking with you and listening to not just their words, but so much more than their words, how they're moving,
Right.
how they're breathing, where they're pausing.
Right.
And one of the most important things as well when it comes to coaching, please correct me if I'm wrong, is being able to be silent as well and to know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because one of the biggest problems is that people, when there's a hole in the conversation, people feel they have to fill it.
Right, yeah.
Right. And what tends to happen is that if, let's say, I'm the coach and you're the coachee, you're trying to get your thoughts together. Right? Because you're trying to make a connection you've never made before. It's what's called coaching magic. And once you've made a connection, right, like 1 + 1 all of a sudden equals 5, you can't go back to who you were before because you've made that connection. A coach can be of some help because all they're doing is putting the mirror onto you. And when they turn the mirror onto you, the funny thing is, what you see isn't your reflection. What you see is how I see you. Okay, you follow that?
I'm following.
Right? Okay, and because, as I said before, if I think you've got a superpower here, I am going to treat you on the basis that you have that superpower. And so everything I'm going to do for you, and I'm constantly saying to the women I coach, you have no idea how good you are. You have no idea how rare this is. You have no idea how important this is. You have no idea how many people are needing this, what you've got, right? Because you are the answer to a lot of people's prayers. Because of what you believe and what you think and how you can help people. Saying thank you so much for doing that. You're inspiring me. You make me believe in myself and all those types of things that you're making a difference. Well, that's the same thing that you're doing. You're making a difference, and you're doing it because you're doing it, right? You do it because you think it makes sense to you to do it, right? You're not doing it to make a gazillion dollars. You're doing it because you think you're helping people, and you are.
I mean, George, I've had the most incredible women just over the last week, and each woman has been so different, and each woman has helped another woman, because I've had messages after the live interview saying to me, wow, she's amazing, can I contact her? And people are connecting. And those women
Right.
are speaking, that some of them are nervous and they didn't want to share their stories, feel so light and happy that they managed to put pen to paper and write down exactly everything they felt, not in pages and pages and pages, but you know, in a few paragraphs, and they felt so good about it. And then when I speak to them, they feel important, because they are
Right.
important, because they
Yeah,
are important, that
absolutely.
they are very important.
And, and and that's one of the great things with regard to the social media world, is that those stories can get out, right? And they get out because of people like yourself giving them
So
a platform to tell their story,
right.
right? And right again, and you know, the basic thing is that, you know, if I can, and the whole argument that, you know, that people give that I'm too old. Well, hey, I did this at 67. You know, what's your excuse, right? Right? You know, type thing. And so you're just letting people tell their stories because everybody's got a different story.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you so much, George, for your time. Apologies for the connection issues, but you have resonated in me so much. And I know that I've seen so many comments flying by of people saying that you are great and fantastic, and everything that you've said is just so well articulated. I've just got one last question for you. For any of the ladies or even gentlemen that have been watching this interview or will watch this interview and they want to connect with you, do you do things online? Can it be internationally? Can they DM you, or do they have to email you?
Okay. The answer is yes to everything. First of all, the places where I am is I am on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn. Facebook, not so much. And I'm at George Gettas on Instagram, and I'm George Gettas on LinkedIn. And the only trick is Gettas is spelled Gettas. It's a family name. I may be the only George Gettas in the world, so you know that part is unique. But if somebody DMs me on Instagram, I will get back to them. If someone sends me a message on LinkedIn, I'll get back to them. And sometimes we go and have week-long chats with people who send in a message for whatever, right? Because it just, you know, I feel that if they are willing to talk, I'm willing to listen and give my 2 cents and, you know, whatever. And if they want to send me an email, it's george.gettas@gmail.com. It's real simple. And yes, my preference obviously is I prefer one-on-one over, you know, in a coffee shop, but I'm willing to do it by Zoom. I'm willing to do it by, you know, whatever, if someone wants coaching and types thing. And what I tend to do is I tend to give 2 free coaching lessons right up at the beginning to see if, you know, we're compatible for each other and, you know, that type of thing. And the only thing, and what I do is as I talked to you before about the strength finders, I ask people to go through the strength finders test to see what their top 5 strengths are, because even if you don't do coaching with me, you gain something of self-knowledge through doing that, which I want to leave you with at minimum, right? You know, type thing. And then I have a buddy here in Toronto who's creating an online app to try to do something similar to what Strength Finders is doing, which supposedly is coming live in a couple of weeks or a month. And it does the same thing of trying to figure out, you know, what's the area that you're good at, what are your special, you know, what's your special sauce, what, you know, what's your genius, where's your genius, that type of thing.
Right.
And so I want to go through and do you know, beta testing when that comes out to see how good it is. And it might be something also I do with the people that I coach, you know, on an ongoing basis, you know, type thing, depending if it's useful or it's not useful. And, you know, so that type of stuff. So the answer is yes to literally all your